So we're going to start out first today. We're going to review the discount example we worked on in class this week. So this file is out on Schoology. A little bit bigger. There we go. So this is just computing the discount if the criteria are met. I've got a test case in here. $10 a unit, 200 units, 50 units. You can play around with that if you want to make sure it's working. Then we have the simple function. I've given that to you. The simple function is in here. So let's go look at it. It's right here. You input quantity and price. Like any Excel function, the inputs are separated. If you look at the code here, the inputs are separated by commas. That's the way Excel functions work, whether they're user-defined or Excel-defined. And we had what we talked about. If the quantity is big enough, meets the threshold, then you get a 10% discount. Otherwise, the discount is 0. Then we round it off to 2 cents. There's nothing else in this one. Then the steps were, well, this really wasn't a great spreadsheet in the first place because it hard-coded the discount rate. I said, well, we should make that variable. And this, of course, does that in here. And then the challenge was create a function that does that. I'm going to show you the solutions. I'm not going to post the solutions on Schoology. You should put the solutions in your own spreadsheet. But just make sure this is working. 20% discount. Okay, it's working like it's supposed to. This one currently doesn't change anything because the function doesn't exist yet. Then we moved on to, well, there are a couple of hard-coded items. So what about that threshold? Maybe we should change that too. Then you can play around with test cases again. And the only real change is in this if statement. Not a big change, of course. Just more things that are variable instead of hard-coded. And then the challenge was, again, create a function for that. And it's not here yet, so it doesn't work. But this is the file that's on Schoology, so this is the file that you can start with. Here are the solutions. I have to enable the content because it's macro enabled. Let me size this up. Same place we were, same results. The simple function works just as it worked. This should be blue. Just as it worked before. Let's look at that function. It's in there. And then we said, okay, we had this working. Get a function that works for this. Well, I'm just going to call this version 2 of the function. We input quantity, price, and discount rate. Get back to my example. And now we can mess around and it works like it's supposed to. What does that code look like? It's right here. Discount version 2, quantity, price, rate. We just added that other variable and made it variable here instead of hard coding the 10%. Nothing else in this function changed. And then we went on and said, but wait a minute, just like in the other spreadsheet, there are a couple of things here that were hard coded. So how do we fix that? Discount 3, where we want to have both the rate and the threshold put in there. Change function again, add a fourth input. And now you have to put all 4 of them in. So We reach the threshold, we get the discount. Don't reach the threshold, we don't. Now that's pretty straightforward if you want to make that work. That's not very efficient. This is 3 different discount functions for the 3 different situations that we have. No one really wants to do that. So then what we talked about was using the optional feature inside of a function, because a lot of Excel functions have optional inputs. So that's what we did, and that's the solution I have in here next. Let me slide all the way down to here so you can see it. There we go. You take the original function, instead of renaming it and copying it and creating different functions, you just create 2 optional inputs, and you literally use the word optional. So the quantity and price, it has to have those or you're going to get an error. If you don't put in a rate, it's going to assume 10%, if rate's missing. If you don't put in a threshold, it's going to assume 100. Like any other Excel function, though, now it matters how you put these things in. So this is the one that you really want in your personal finished solution. You don't really want the version 2 and the version 3. You want this, and you want this to work at every place where we've used it. So you can take a look at that. You can pause the video if you have to see it, but that's the function that you want. Get that out of the way, and we'll see how it works. So you go to the original one, and it works fine, because I put in the first 2. And the function says the first 2 have to be there, nothing else has to be there. You go to the second one, I don't have to use this V2 thing, I can just use the discount function. It's the exact same function, but now I'm giving it the 3rd input. That was optional, I didn't have to have that. And I get the same results. It doesn't change the results. Now when I go to the 3rd one, again, I don't need a V3 of my function. I just need one version of my function with all 4 inputs. And now it works like it's supposed to. Just a quick note on, this is true again of any Excel function. The way I've demonstrated it here, we've done, you have to have the 2 required inputs, then we put in the 3rd optional, then we add the 4th optional. You could conceivably have a situation, so I'm going to copy this whole, I'll just do it this way, copy the sheet down here, move or copy the sheet right to the end, create a copy. I could conceivably have a situation where I don't want to put in a rate. I just want to put in quantity, price, and the discount threshold. What you have to do in that situation, again, this is not because it's a user-defined function. This is because this is how Excel functions work. If I put in a later optional input and I skip that optional input, I do have to put in that nothing there. Otherwise, it will think that if I do this, it will think I have a 250% discount rate. That's not what I'm using that for. I want that to be specifically the threshold. And again, it doesn't give me hints like built-in functions, so you have to know when you create your own functions how they work.